Welcome to the Fertility Hive podcast, where we dive deep into the emotional highs and lows of the fertility space. I'm your host, Lisa Chia, parent via egg donation and surrogacy, founder of the Genesis Group and co-founder of Seeds. I'm joined by our incredible co-host, our resident mental health professional, Abigail Glass, who has been supporting individuals in the fertility space for over 2 decades and is a parent via adoption, and also our esteemed attorney, Molly O'Brien, a partner at the International Fertility Law Group and a sitting board member of Seeds. In today's episode, we'll be discussing anonymity and if that's a real thing in the egg donation space now. What do you think?
Well, we all have a lot to say about this. And we've all been in this field for so long. We've seen it change a lot over the past several years. Would you agree?
So much.
Yeah.
We've been saying that it was no longer a possibility to be anonymous, but we still kept going forward. Over the 20 years, probably 10 years ago, we were saying there is no anonymity, really real anonymity. But we're still working under that model.
We still have anonymous egg donor contracts.
Yes.
Right.
So it's under it's misleading for donors who are thinking, I have an anonymous egg donor contract. The intended parents don't know my name. I don't know who they are, but yet it's such a fallacy. It's so wrong that we're misleading donors and I think intended parents. And I think a lot of agencies are doing a good job of, consent and saying, hey, this is the situation, with, new technology, there's no such thing as anonymity. And you have to understand that with a click of a button, we have facial recognition and we can find out different things.
You can reverse search photos.
Yeah.
I think a lot of times donors actually use like social media pictures as their donor profile pictures.
So many times. It's like 9 out of 10.
Which, this is where each of us comes in with what we can do to educate whatever party to the agreement we're talking to, right? Like in the contract, we put things in there that disclaim, 23andMe and Ancestry.com and the fact that it's so easy to have this be discovered in the future. And so my personal thought on it is why not just be open about it? Because it's, in my opinion, it's in everybody's best interest to just be open about it. But I don't get to decide that for a family either. So I kind of understand that balance. I'd love to hear the mental health
So from the
this.
psychological standpoint, intended parents are navigating so many emotions, and really the bottom line is attachment and their readiness. And so we talk about the importance of their child's story, this potential child's story being their story. And so we talk about how and when to disclose that to their inner circle, to their extended circle, and it's different for different families and different individuals. And they need some time sometimes to, they're transitioning from their genetics to other genetics. And so sometimes they need some time to work out the pieces in themselves about that. But the reality is, it's as easy as a photo. I mean, they every intended parent I know finds their anonymous donor fairly easily now.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say the information we provide as an agency is there's so much. We give you the year that they were born, their age, sometimes the school that they attended. You can reverse engineer this so quickly. I mean, even without AI or photo recognition, it's so easy. But after the baby is born, you have so much technology available to you that you can find them as well. I think from a intended parent's perspective, the fear of the unknown is debilitating. And so that's what prevents intended parents from saying, well, what if they're, a unscrupulous individual and they try to come after me for money or
to take the child.
Yeah. There's so many intended parents will say, my worst fear is when the donor comes and knocking at the door and says, you know what, I made a mistake. I think I want to keep the baby. That's their biggest fear. But funny enough, the donor's biggest fear is that the intended parents are going to say, you know what, I don't want the baby.
It's your problem.
It's your exactly. So it's like this exact fear that both parties are feeling. And I think, again, the unknown is what is what's causing the disconnect. Because I think if people if they met with the intended parent or met with the donor and they're like, you know what, this person is just a kind, lovely individual, and that it wasn't just this anonymous face, it was a real person, I think we could overcome that a little bit.
Well, also, donors are generally a particular age and they're in a particular time in their life, and things change.
Yeah.
And so there's also all the considerations. Part of the push for anonymity is that for all parties, right? But so that this donor doesn't get a knock on their door unbeknownst to them, you know, in 10 years when they have a family and it would affect them. And so really we need to educate about how to communicate properly, right?
Are you seeing that at all where one, has a donor ever changed her mind, or have you counseled a donor 5 years down the road after she's donated, and how does she feel about it, and how have her feelings changed?
25 years? Never.
Wow.
Never
had somebody.
No.
Okay.
No. Never.
So any intended parents out there, please hear that, because that's been my experience too. I think that's been your experience.
No, actually, my experience has been we've had not donors change their mind, but their significant others. So they've contacted us and said, listen, I'm not telling my significant other about this egg donation cycles that I've done. I don't want to have this conversation with my significant other.
Wow.
So if there are any intended parents that are interested in communicating, I don't want to be reached out to.
Wow.
So that's what
So she's changed her mind not about the donation, but about the level of communication.
Because of her partner.
Yeah.
So it goes back to they're in transitional stages in their lives as young donors. And I think sometimes they don't have partners yet. And I think if they had open conversations with their partners, it wouldn't be an issue. But again, the fear of the unknown, of not knowing how they would respond or how they would be judged, is debilitating. And they don't even want to go into that space. But yeah, so not the donors, but the significant others of the donors.
That's interesting.
I mean, you know, if you think about it, sometimes people have paralleled egg donation to something taboo and secretive. And so if you put it into that negative space, then you don't want to be judged. You don't want, you don't tell people about, your cheating scandals in the past or, right, something bad that happens in your life.
And we want to be so careful for this child, whatever the thinking or energy behind it is, they receive it. If there's something taboo, or if there's an energy of something's wrong with it, then there's something wrong with their being. And so the truth is, every single party with egg donation, every part of it is coming together because we want you child. Every party wanted you on this planet. And that piece has to be named. And then the parents, very often, the fears in the beginning change as they get attached, right? What I say is that we don't see children via egg donation confused about who their parents are. And that's one of the donor's fears sometimes is, are they going to think, or is it going to be my responsibility? There's not confusion. What I do see is children via egg donation who have traumatic or abusive childhoods or history. And then they get more interested in finding out, where am I, what are my roots?
That's interesting.
Right?
Interesting.
And then there's the difference between privacy and secrecy. Okay, so for secrecy, there's a problem, right? It's secret, it's negative, right? If it's privacy, then it's about protection and letting you know your story first. So that's what I talk to parents about too.
I like that distinction.
Yeah, I was just thinking that too, because it's like there's the parents' right to their own process, right? But then there's the child's right to know and the best interest of the child is a legal thing that we deal with a lot in this space. So there's a lot to balance there.
There's a lot to balance. And I also say, you have time. Like, you have time. You don't need to expose all of this or disclose all of this right now. You get to go through the process. But wait, I was going to say one thing about the privacy is parents feel like they're lying, you know, if they don't. But to be clear, we recommend that the child knows their story and that they know it first. And from the time they're very young, I do this all the time with parents, with families, how to name it, how to bring it in, how to, and there are books about different kinds of families from the time they're 2 years old, right? And they're going through and it's familiar. And I talk with parents about how to present this information all the time. But it's okay to say they get to know their story first. And so we're going to hold it privately. And if you tell somebody later, you get to say, I wasn't lying to you or keeping a secret. It was our child's privacy.
Do you guys think that we should have just 100% open egg donation?
Not necessarily. I really like I was going to ask you guys what you think of this too, like the hybrid stuff where you exchange information, you have the ability to contact one another, but it's on like a goodwill, good faith basis where everybody behaves themselves. You guys can meet in person if you want, you can do that, but you don't necessarily get all that information, right? Because you don't know how people are going to feel after the fact that it's completed, right? I think this is a big thing in this space is you can decide how you feel now, just like you were saying, you can decide how you feel now, but just know that once we take another step down this path, might feel differently, and it's okay to change how you feel about it. And so I like that because it gives people a little bit of protective space to come out with those hybrid type programs. I don't know. What do you think?
I love the spectrum because I think like everyone has the right to decide what feels right for them. But also, like, if you think about it, you're picking this egg donor and you don't know, you know, the idea of her, the essence of her. You're like, I love this idea of her. And you get to know her. And she may not be that person that you thought you would love.
In your head.
Yeah. And so for me, like, just
it's like dating.
It is. It really is. It's just like, you know, I feel that every person, like your friends, you know, you get along with one friend much better than you get along with another friend. And whatever organically develops. And I don't think you have to have this set hard rule that has to be this way. I think it can be what it becomes for you. And I really think that I like the idea of, you know, having a spectrum of whether, you know, you meet in person or you meet over the phone or you have a really lovely relationship where, you know, you come over for Christmas and you share that time. I've had egg donors whose mom and dad will come over for holidays and birthdays and celebrate monumental occasions. And I think that's phenomenal, but I don't think it's for everybody. And so I like the pick and choose.
I like that so that there's room, but I think the key is to educate about all of it on the front end, all the different ways that it can go and how you might change your mind, because the topic is that you can't really be anonymous, right? Because of what technology is right now. And so the hybrid is lovely because it gives room, but we still, the hybrid part, the half of that that's anonymous is still where the problem is. So I think it's about educating fully. I need to add one more thing about privacy and secrecy, and that we absolutely know that kids do better when we know, we do better as humans when we know our roots. However, if the caveat is that if a child's going to be ostracized by another part of the family, if there is some risk for their emotional safety or well-being, that's the time where you put a hold on it. That's when it's different. So it's important to cover that because that does happen. I have that happening with a family right now. They are these these grandparents are very close, but they have a certain belief system. And I'm pretty sure that once the baby is here and once there's an emotional connection and attachment and we see this family, that there's a shift in the acceptance. But they very well might push away this pregnancy and this baby. And so it is safer to hold that right now.
Yeah, that makes sense.
That's a lot of stress.
There's obviously a big distinction between same-sex families
and
huge. Straight families.
Day and night. It's like Mars and Venus. It's totally different planets.
So, because it's very apparent with a gay couple or a single man that he used an egg donor. Like, obviously.
They don't have a mechanism to produce. Yeah.
So I think that it's an interesting challenge that is specific to male-female couples, which is...
Yeah, I think there's a mourning process that the intended mother has to go through, an acceptance, just like you go through the grief system, you have denial, acceptance, the whole grieving process. I think there is something to be said about women that are going through this process. You have to come to terms with what's happening. And oftentimes seeing a young version that is capable and is able to produce what you're so deeply desiring is hard. I know that when I was going through IVF and going through my challenges, getting a, invitation to a baby shower, which is a momentous occasion, you're so happy, but inside it hurt a little bit. Yeah. And, so there's a lot to digest and understand before you can get to that space of accepting it and moving on. And I think a lot of that is being anonymous gives me that barrier of protection. I don't need to know this person. She's just an ends to a mean. And so I think there is a lot to be said about that. And I don't know if it's easy to just say, everyone should be on the spectrum where you should be known and understand that anonymity doesn't exist and you have the opportunity to meet the donors and it's going to be better for you. It's going to be better for the child. It's better for everyone. But I think it's hard.
It is. And they can't digest all of that at once.
Yeah.
And there needs to be a place, like you just said, at some point for some women, it is an ends to a mean, right? But there has to be room to be able to say all of those unacceptable thoughts that come up,
The legal piece is really key here, if I may.
Yes, please.
So let me share a little fun fact with you guys.
Yes.
You would be absolutely horrified to know that 99% of the egg donation cases that come across of my desk, nobody has had this discussion with anybody. And I'm drafting the contract and I contact the agency and the agency is like, yeah, this is an anonymous donation. And then I'm having my consultation with the parents going through the contract. And I'm like, so by the way, is this really what you want? And they're like, no, we absolutely would love to have contact with her. I'm like, did the agency not talk to you about this? And no, we never had this conversation. So now they've screened a donor, paid that money, selected her, paid the agency, the whole thing. We're almost at the final stage and they're finding out this is coming up. This is not when that should be coming up. You do a great job of this though. You're one of the only agencies that actually does this in advance. So thank you. Because I get really clear instructions from you guys. But so many agencies don't even, and then they're horrified that I'm asking the question, like I'm insulting them. I'm like, yeah, I am insulting you because you didn't do your job. I should not be here discovering that the parents want communication with this donor at the legal contract stage. It's horrifying.
The donor's not educated either.
Yes,
very
it's not
often
fair.
they do a less than adequate psychological evaluation where that's supposed to be discussed and what that looks like.
Well, I think, as an agency, you have to respect the donor's wishes, but the donor doesn't know what she doesn't know until you present them with different options and what it potentially can look like. And so when we have intended parents who are open and willing to have this type of open communication, we prefer it because it brings everything out into the open and we feel like that's the best place for this egg donation space to live. And so we'll give options. But there are a lot of donors that are just like, you know what? I'm not comfortable. I don't really need to know the intended parents. I I trust that they're going to be good individuals, that you've done your job and you've background checked them and you vetted them. And that's good enough for me.
And that's where education needs to happen because they can't actually be anonymous anymore with the way that our world is.
Yeah.
And we do tell them, there's no such thing as anonymity. Once the child is born, there's so much resources that can provide, even if you didn't take 23andMe or Ancestry, but your family members did. It will come in your general direction. They will be able to reach out to your uncles and your cousins and your great uncle and figure a way out to
They will figure it out.
They will figure it out. So there is no anonymity, and we let them know that. But if a donor is steadfast to the idea of like, this is not for me, I just want to donate my eggs, then that's her prerogative too. And we just want to make sure both parties are understanding that anonymity doesn't exist, and that they have to just, both parties need to agree to what level of communication they want. That's what's important to us.
Well, go ahead.
Sorry, one more thing on this child that's coming to the planet is I tell parents we want to know every bit we can, every bit you can, whether it's, we keep talking about egg donors, but it's sperm donors too.
Oh, yes, right? yes.
It's their roots, right? And we want to have as much information for them as we can, because they want to know, not because they're confused who their parent is, but because we all deserve to know.
Yeah.
So, do you want to know how it goes in the contract? Because it's actually really super interesting. So whether it's anonymous or not, the contract always has a section that talks about the importance of sharing genetic information that might come up. And if the parties, whether they agreed to contact or not, if the parties have that information to share in the future, they can do it through the agency, they can do it through the lawyers, they can do it through the clinic where the donation occurs. But then in a preceding paragraph, we would usually, a properly drafted contract, we would cover the type of communication. But a couple of key points, because you brought up the child. The child is not a party to this contract because the child is not born yet. We cannot control that child's behavior in this contract.
Right.
So any child born through egg donation absolutely is not prohibited from seeking out the donor. And that needs to be made really clear to her. And I hope the lawyers who are advising egg donors on their contracts talk about that.
Yeah.
They do not.
They do not.
They do not.
Like,
because that's a huge distinction, right? The child is not even
privy to the contract. That makes so much sense. But this is the first time that I've even really thought about, someone has had that conversation with me. I've never thought about the child is not part of this contract.
They're not bound by this contract.
And good luck telling a teenager what to do. Good luck with that.
Right? Wow.
So interesting point there.
Right. And they're thinking about right now.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like right now, is it anonymous or, what family they want to know or not know, or will they have a relationship with the donor as the intended parent? But this piece is way down the line.
Crucial.
Yeah.
We need to have the education list.
100%.
Right. What categories too.
Yeah. And here's the thing. If the parties want even the opportunity for communication in the future, it has to be in the contract. It's really, really, really difficult to unwind something like that if it's wrong in the contract. Just because it's in the contract that you might have communication in the future does not mean you will. It doesn't mean anybody's obligated. I can't force somebody to reply to a contact or vice versa.
But you can go the other way, right? Say it's anonymous, but then the intended parent and the donor decide I need medical information, and let's say the agency reaches out to them. It doesn't prohibit them from not communicating, right?
Well, a lot of times in the anonymous contract, it does. It says you are not supposed to seek the identity of the other party, or it is a breach of this contract. So if you want, now medical information is not the identity of the party. That's a very different thing. And as I mentioned, genetic information that might come up in the future is always excluded from the communications because that's too important not to share. Yeah,
absolutely.
But I guess anybody listening right now, I really caution you about entering into any standardized contracts that haven't been negotiated. Talk to a mental health professional and talk to a lawyer about what it means to be open, semi-open, anonymous. What is the new word we're using now? It's identified donations. That's the word they want us to use, identified or non-identified, all that sort of stuff in advance before you enter into the contract, because even if it's just kind of something your attorney writes in there, because we can write whatever you guys want. Like it can be very open-ended. If it's not in there, it's going to make your life a lot more difficult if you change your mind in 2 years or in 5 years.
And there's, I mean, I know you do it thoroughly, but I think a lot of attorneys don't.
Yeah, it's cut and paste, and
it's cut and paste, and they don't think of down the line.
Yeah.
And I think intended parents don't know what questions to ask until they start asking.
Until somebody tells them.
Exactly. Like right now, I just didn't know that. I mean,
and this is why you need a podcast. FYI.
I think this is really good information. And I think as intended parents, you just need to ask a lot of questions, and you need to talk to other intended parents that have been through the process. And it's important to have these conversations, because I know it's easily, like, there's so many things that are happening and you can be overwhelmed. But I think securing the understanding what type of communication you can have in the future, what is realistic, is important, because it's your future child. You know, I think it's really important to.
And even if they don't need the info, have it there for them. I think they will be so grateful that that's available to them, whether they want it or not.
Yeah.
It's essential.
Yeah.
It's essential. I was going to say one more thing when you just said.
I have a little pro tip. Maybe I'll go with my pro tip while you get your memory back. My pro tip is for any parents doing any sort of hopeful communication in the future is that they write a handwritten thank you card to the donor in advance.
Oh, I love that.
And a small gift, nothing expensive. I don't think anything expensive is necessary here, but something meaningful about who the donor's helping. So if it's a family from Europe and maybe they live in Paris or something like that, they could get her a little Eiffel Tower and some macarons or something like that. And you can send it to the clinic who's going to do the egg donation or the agency in advance. And that way, when she goes in for the egg retrieval procedure and she wakes up out of the anesthesia, she gets this little thank you card and this meaningful little gift. And that, I think, sets a really nice stage for a beautiful communication in the future in some way. And I think that that's a really nice way to introduce that type of relationship.
And I think you can do this as an intended parent. You can reach out to your agency and say, I'd like to do this. We do the same thing. Yeah. The day before the retrieval, we ask the intended parent to write a letter. Like, say, I'm thinking of you today. And so then before she goes in for her retrieval, she has this heart full of you know, just gratitude, because who doesn't want to get a thank you letter saying, you know, you're changing my life, you're giving me hope. Like, that's huge. And when, you know, I'm all about intention and feelings and energy. And so when you're going into the retrieval, I want you to be hopeful and I want you to be excited for the opportunity of sharing this amazing gift and then feeling that gratitude. So I love that.
It's not a small thing egg donors go through, right?
It's enormous.
We've all taken the shots. We've all done those things. Like, so it's kind of silly for somebody in their mind to think, oh, she's just doing this for the money. There is absolutely a heartfelt, altruistic component in donations, because nobody's going to put themselves through that
solely
for
the financial gain.
Think about it, not that much money for the gift that it is, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love that pro tip. It's amazing.
It's a good pro tip.
Yeah, it is.
Did you remember what you were going to say?
Yes, I was going to say that you said there's so much going on emotionally, navigating medically, you know, so many pieces that I often hear, we're just trying to get through legal.
Yeah.
We're just trying to get through legal. Legal's, you know, it's taking long to get through legal. And so if you're just getting through it, you're missing the opportunity for all of the learning and communication about the forever.
Yeah. It's so interesting to contract so far in advance of something. And, you know, California recently passed a law about donation, where now every time a donor donates in the state, she has to sign a particular form that says, this is how I feel. I'm okay with my information being disclosed to the child when the child's 18 or not. And she can always change her mind on that form. But donors need to be educated about that too.
Right.
Because even if she doesn't live here, but she does the donation here, she could be subject to that, because most clinics have that in place as a thing. And I'd love to know what the two of you think about Colorado's donation law.
Yeah.
Because like all the have you heard about it from a couple of years ago? Like all the tracking and the limits and the
I think it's good. I think, it's a step in the right direction. I do think that it's where we need to go because it should be all tracked. And I think, like we have sibling registries and everything like that, but it's not mandated. So I love that it's mandated and that we have understanding of who's donated to who and how many times. I think it's a little bit, for me as an agency, it's a little bit more difficult because it's more paperwork and you have to file for the license. And it is an extra step that we didn't have to do before. But I think overall, looking at it from a perspective of the intended parent and the donor and the future, I think it makes sense to me, and I think if we did it across all the states, it would make even more sense.
It's almost like it doesn't make sense to do it in one state.
Exactly. It's just a pain in the butt. But I do like the fact that we have to take a step in the right direction. And I think it is a step in the right direction. And I think if other states follow suit, it'll make it easier to create a consistent, this is the standard. And, I love that inherently the donor conceived child will have that information and it's not going to be a barrier because it's mandated by the state. And so if we have all states follow suit, I think it'll be beneficial to our industry.
I agree. I think people just get anxious about privacy.
Well, that's the counter argument to that is that it is actually a quite stringent law, and it's the right of the child versus the right of privacy of the people going through the process. So it's like, that's such an interesting legal battle. And I'm sure it is for you guys too, to see that. It's like, it's interesting.
Yeah. I think it's the right decision, but time will tell.
Yeah. I heard something and I haven't actually verified this, but I've heard it, that some of these donor registry websites, one in particular, is the donor registers under the code name that she's given, right? Which might be her first name and then a series of numbers or letters or something like that. It is not restricted for anybody else to look up that donor's profile. So, for example, the donor could do an anonymous donation to a family and then do an open donation under that code. The anonymous donation family can go look her up if they use the same code, which a lot of agencies do for all of the donors' donations. So,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, but they don't tell people that. So they will if you ask, which is, I saw an email thread from the owner of one of these registry websites where that question was asked. We were trying to get them to come speak at Seeds because I wanted them to talk on that particular issue, like, because they want open donations for everybody. So they're basically taking unopened donations and making them open without telling people.
That doesn't feel right either. It
definitely
feels really icky.
Yeah, it's definitely icky.
But there is no real anonymity.
Exactly.
Again, it comes down to there is no real anonymity.
What was it Dr. Elaine Gordon used to say? And I remember her speaking at a Seeds conference.
Oh,
she gave
I remember.
a whole presentation on the myth of anonymity.
Yes.
And I loved
that
the way
was
that
what
she
I was
put it.
referring to from 10 years ago, but it was probably more.
Yeah, I think it was more than 10 years ago. Yeah, the myth of anonymity. And I think that is a perfect way to put it still to this day.
Oh, she nailed it.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the takeaway is there's no such thing as anonymity and that you have to take the necessary steps as an intended parent to make sure that your child has all the necessary information for them and that if you need it, there's an opportunity for you to have that communication, that open communication. And like you said, there's no harm in having that open-ended clause because if you don't exercise it, no big deal,
And emotional and education about communication, about all the possibilities for each party on the front end.
Yeah, and you know what? Your pro tip of being able to curate your own birth story and being able to share that with your child, I think is so important. I think creating that normalcy from the very beginning is what creates the normalcy. Like so they don't feel like I was all of a sudden just torn into.
If you make a big deal out of something, people are going to think it's a big deal. But if you're like, this is how it is.
That's
not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's wonderful. Then everybody's like, oh, cool. Okay, now we're a lot more comfortable.
And it's part of our hearts. It's part of our family. It's part of our yes, right? Rather than a negative, secret, uncomfortable story.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's important to say, you know what, we all have, as intended parents, we have really good intentions of wanting the best for our future child. And I think it's so important to understand that if you just put into, you do some research and you talk to intended parents, talk to a good attorney, talk to a good mental health professional, you can get to a space where you know you feel comfortable with the contracts that you have and the expectations that you're setting up for you and your family. Yeah.
And just know that you have options, whether you're an intended parent or a donor yourself. Ask the questions early on, advocate for yourself. If you don't feel comfortable advocating for yourself, ask your agency to help you or ask your attorney to help you, because we can make anything work for you. We just need to know what your wants and needs are.
And take the time.
Yeah.
Take the time for each step. You get to reflect.
And I love that. Thank you so much for joining us on the Fertility Hive podcast. We hope today's episode was informative and educational and gave you the clarity and confidence you need to take your next steps on the path to parenthood. If you have questions, feedback, or topic you'd like us to cover, we'd love to hear from you. Connect with us on any of the social media channels linked here, or reach us directly at fertilityhivepodcast@gmail.com. Be sure to follow the podcast for more essential conversations, and see you next time.